Welcome to the NAMI New Jersey weekly webinar series. My name is Meredith Mason-Blount. I'm the Executive Director from NAMI New Jersey. Today we have an amazing webinar called Maintaining Emotional Health During COVID-19. COVID-19 has altered our world. For the time being, we are living in uncertain times, and now more than ever, it is important to take care of our mental health. Cara Maksimow, LCSW, is a clinical therapist and specializes in the treatment of anxiety, trauma, and stress. This workshop is focused on emotional wellness tips to help participants stay positive, connected, and productive. She will discuss therapeutic tools from mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy, neuroscience, and positive psychology to help maintain emotional health in a challenging time. Cara Maksimow is LCSW in Northern New Jersey. She is a speaker, author, and owner of Maximize Wellness located in Chatham, New Jersey. Her therapeutic approach is supportive, collaborative, and mindfulness-based. And during this time, she is available still through telehealth and is available for people to reach out to. So Cara, thank you so much for reaching out and having this amazing webinar, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Meredith, and thank you everybody who's on the call today. I know there's a big group, so what I'm going to do is try to stop at moments and have you type in any questions to the chat, and Meredith will read them off so it's anonymous and we can have more of a discussion without it really being a discussion. And thank you so much for the introduction. Like Meredith said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a therapist in Northern New Jersey, and I'm continuing to work through telehealth, and we're really seeing so much anxiety and nervousness and fear, which is a really normal response to a global traumatic experience, which a lot of us are experiencing differently, but we're all experiencing it in one way or another. So I put together this presentation to just talk about some key areas that we can focus on to help us maintain our own emotional health and resiliency throughout this process. I want to start off with the idea of control. So many of us are focusing on so many different things, and there's so much information coming at us at all times. Things like things being canceled, right? Other people's social distancing decisions, how the news reports data that's happening. When can I go back to normal? Other people's health, schools closing. We just received word in New Jersey just in the last few days that school will not be coming back this school year. And there's a lot of questions about what the fall's going to bring, what the summer's going to bring. So a lot of us are feeling really uneasy about a lot of this information. But the key is to recognize that these are things that are outside of our control. The reason I put this circle together is what we can focus on is our own self-care. What are we doing for ourselves? What's our diet look like? What's our exercise routine look like? What are my actions towards other people? What can I do? I can focus on learning, following the latest advice and information. What's important to me, how I connect with others, and how I spend my time. These are all areas that are within our control. And for a lot of us, a lot of our time and energy is being focused on the things that are outside the circle. And as much easier said than done, but I'm going to give a little bit of homework to do around this idea. If you were to, after this webinar, sit down and just draw a circle on the paper and then ask yourself, what are the things that are taking up my attention and time? What am I focusing on? Maybe I'm spending a lot of time on social media. Maybe I'm getting information that's, making me a little bit stressed out, and I'm focusing on what other people are doing. Write down in the circle what's within your control. What can you do something about? And anything outside of the circle is outside of your control. And then focus your attention and energy inside the circle. Any Q&A or thoughts or questions? Anyone want to share anything regarding control? And if there's any Q&A, Meredith, let me know. Otherwise, just tell me to move on.
I think people are still starting off, so you can go ahead and move on.
Okay, great.
Oh, wait, I'm so Cara. We have one thing just popped up. Someone said one thing within their control is that they can pray.
Absolutely. That is absolutely. And for those of us who are used to going to religious services, yes, we can't go to religious services. But I know where I go every Sunday, it's online, right? Our pastor does online. So being able to watch on Zoom, or being able to pray in my own home, or being able to pray with my family members, absolutely, that's something that's within your control. So if your focus and energy is so focused on, I can't go and practice the way I used to practice, but you can still practice, right? What's the new normal, at least for now? Anything else
Right.
before
So
I move on?
some people are saying that they can control how they react. And then other people said following a diet and exercise routine, or even getting out of bed in the morning can sometimes be difficult. Will you be going over some tools on how to control that in our lives?
Yeah, it can be really difficult because of how our body's reacting. And yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Absolutely. And I want to start off by encouraging everyone to seek out mental health support if you feel like you need it. There is a lot of people are fearful, well, I can't go see a therapist, what am I going to do? And every therapist I know is doing Zoom and or telehealth calls, and it's really important to be as proactive as possible, especially when it's tough to get up in the morning. And that's all a normal response to a traumatic event, which we really are all experiencing, this global traumatic event, all different ways, but we definitely are experiencing it. So we'll definitely touch on that. I want to start off here talking a little bit about this lack of predictability, sense of safety and purpose, and how our thoughts and our mind reacts to things. So this picture in front of me shows that when something happens, we have a thought about it, right? Then we experience emotions based on that thought, and then actions. It could be anything. So I'm going to use just a simple example that we may be experiencing right now. Suppose you decide you're going to walk through your neighborhood. You're out, you're wearing your mask, you're taking a walk. You see a neighbor, someone that you're friendly with, maybe don't know so well. You see them across the street and you wave, hello. And that neighbor then turns the other way and doesn't respond, doesn't acknowledge you, doesn't respond, doesn't do anything. Many of us in that situation would have a strong reaction, a feeling of disconnect, of self-worth, of abandonment, of what did I do to them? Having a negative reaction, an emotional reaction. But that negative emotional reaction is not necessarily coming from the fact that they didn't respond to you. It's coming from our thoughts about it. So the thought might be, what did I do to her? Does she not like me? Did I offend her? Oh, right? Is there something wrong with me? Am I not likable? Do people not want to be my friend? Those are the kinds of automatic negative thoughts that we tend to have. Those thoughts cause an emotional reaction and then even an action. You might see them again next week and give them the cold shoulder because, well, if they're going to blow me off, I'm going to blow them off. Let's kind of backtrack. Something happens. You have an event. You wave hello, smile, and they don't respond. What if you were able to look objectively at, maybe they had AirPods in their ears and they were on the phone. Maybe they were listening to music. Maybe they didn't even recognize me. I'm wearing a mask and it's across the street and not everybody's eyesight is exactly 20/20. There are a lot of reasons the person might not have smiled back. Maybe they were having their own difficult time and caught up in their own thoughts and didn't even see you wave. All of those thoughts cause you to feel neutral. And then next time you see them out, you might wave again and smile, and this time they might wave back. What's happening in that situation is our thoughts really direct our emotional experience. And what we do have control over is recognizing our thoughts, seeing our thoughts for just thoughts. They're not truths. They're not a given. They're just thoughts. And what tends to happen is when we're operating from what I'm going to call the fire alarm part of our brain, right? Our amygdala, our nervous system, our inner workings of our brain, we have these automatic thoughts that we don't even know we're having. And they lead us to have an emotional response. The way I would describe it is, if you think of your house, you have a fire alarm in your house, right? I have a fire alarm in my house. When I cook, my fire alarm goes off. I'm not a very good cook. I burn things a lot. My kids are always yelling at me. My fire alarm would go off if my house was on fire, just the same as if I burnt eggs again and there was smoke. My fire alarm doesn't know the difference between me burning eggs and a real fire. In our brains, our amygdala or our fire alarm goes off when we sense danger, right? There's something called neuroception where our nervous system is sensing danger. And right now we're in this global traumatic response that we're sensing danger. There is a lack of predictability. There's a lack of safety. We're numbing out. There's a lot happening that we're kind of sensing this danger, and our fire alarm is going off. And when our fire alarm goes off, we have these automatic thoughts that we don't even realize we're having. So one key area to focus on is to notice our thoughts. Reduce that fire alarm. Even just a few deep breaths is enough to reduce that fire alarm and engage your thinking part of your brain, right? So the thinking part of the brain, that's the prefrontal cortex, that's up here, where the amygdala is kind of down in there. We engage the thinking part of our brain and challenge our thoughts. So in that situation of walking across the street, immediately, as soon as they didn't wave at us, all our amygdala and our fire alarm was like, uh-oh, I'm unlovable, I'm unlikable. That automatic thought that we have often that we don't even know we're having comes back and makes us feel a certain way. But if we're able to take a deep breath and think through the situation, examine the evidence, look at it for what it is, and change that thought, look at other possibilities, we're able to change our emotional response. And there's a lot of that happening right now. We're believing everything we think. A great example with ACT that I really like is if I said to you, you can't lift your arm. Say it to yourself over and over again. I can't lift my arm. I can't lift my arm. I can't lift my arm. That's a thought. It's a legitimate thought. And now I ask you to lift your arm. It lifts. Why? Because a thought doesn't always make it true. So one key that I like to use is this is all part of cognitive behavioral therapy. So a CBT practice would be to say, I'm noticing, I'm thinking. So if the thought is, I'm not good enough, I'm just going to use that as a broad thought that a lot of us have. And it's an automatic thought that tends to happen over and over again. And when we have a thought over and over again, it gets stronger. It's kind of like that neural pathway gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So the thought, I'm not good enough, comes up. If you say that to yourself, how do you feel? I'm not good enough. How does your body feel? How do you feel emotionally? And now say to yourself, I'm noticing, I'm thinking, I'm not good enough. As simple as that is, you're creating a little bit of distance between the actual thought that you're having and yourself and who you are. You're not enmeshed with the thought any longer. You're seeing it for what it is something that you're thinking, but not necessarily who you are. So that's kind of the key in this section, is to really take control and understand what's happening in your mind. Keep a thought journal, challenge your thoughts, examine the evidence, right? Is it really true that this is what, is there support for what I'm thinking? Sometimes just notice it as a thought Say to yourself, I'm noticing, I'm thinking. Ask yourself what else could be true, and then notice how you feel. So keeping that thought journal, you may notice for yourself over time that you're going to find that there's certain thoughts that pop up over and over again. And I kind of look at it as the more you have a thought, neuroscience tells you that the neural pathway gets stronger. It's easy to have that thought. Like if you're driving to the grocery store and you go to the same grocery store every day, you get in the car, you don't think about it, you drive to the grocery store. You don't have to think about where you're going, you just know to go. But what if you changed grocery stores? You have to intentionally think to turn the other way. But if you're not paying attention, you go to the old grocery store, right? So it's because that neural pathway for the old grocery store is really strong. But over time, you create a new neural pathway to the new store. And that's what we need to do with new thoughts, more positive, more hopeful. I saw a bunch of stuff coming in. Meredith, are there any comments or thoughts or questions about CBT and our thinking?
One comment that's very powerful and a good practice to put into place to change your way of thinking negative thoughts.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And this is not something that you do once and everything goes away. Negative thoughts, especially when it comes to anxiety. People with anxiety, the thoughts still come, or depression, the thoughts still come, but we have a better handle on how to challenge them and what to do with them. And over time, they're going to come less and less. But we can't expect them never to happen. So we need to have ways to deal with them and manage them. Which brings me to self-compassion. Self-compassion is similar to the last slide, but I really feel like this is so important right now. Self-compassion is a practice. Kristen Neff is a psychologist. She is one of the leaders in this area of psychology. She's quoted as saying, instead of mercilessly judging and criticizing yourself for various inadequacies or shortcomings, self-compassion means you are kind and understanding when confronted with personal failings. After all, whoever said you were supposed to be perfect? So many of us try to be perfect. It's human nature, right? We want to always be better. We want to do the best we can. But perfectionism is something that I see in my practice a lot. And it's very, very much tied in with anxiety. It's the idea that we try so hard, and when we don't reach that expected perfection, we beat ourselves up. There's not a lot of in between. And practicing self-compassion is a new way of looking at how you are talking to yourself, especially now during COVID. I mean, there are some people whose response is, I'm going to, create this charity, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to learn a new language, and I'm going to be the best homeschool to my kid as possible. And they're trying to get everything done exactly perfectly. And there are others of us who are like, I'm just trying to get through the day. And both are okay. That's how we respond in a crisis situation. It's our nervous system, our limbic system, our nervous system reacts, right? We all know that fight, or freeze response, right? People who tend to go into the fight response are doing, going. People who are in the flight response are, I can't do anything. I'm not leaving my house. I'm going to order my groceries. I just need to be home. And then freeze, similarly, right? They're not able to kind of motivate, and that's okay. All of those are normal responses to a traumatic event. So being kind to ourselves is crucial. We shouldn't be judging ourselves based on what other people are doing, right? I've seen things on the internet like, you're going to come out of quarantine 20 pounds lighter and your best self. And you know what? And you're probably not. A lot of us are not. We need to just focus on where we are. So the key ingredients with self-compassion are self-kindness versus self-judgment. How do we talk to ourselves? Imagine you were talking to your best friend that you love dearly. What would you say to them? And are you saying that to yourself in your own head? Most of us are not. It's common. Most of us are just not. It's not how we function. So checking in with your thoughts, using more self-kindness. The next point is common humanity versus isolation. We're in this together, right? I've seen a lot of people talking about we're in the same boat. So maybe we're not in the same boat because everybody's boat's a little bit different, but we are in the same storm, right? We're all in the same storm, and we're all managing with whatever boat we have. We're not alone. No matter what you're going through, remembering you're not alone. When we go through something challenging, the first instinct is to feel isolated and feel like it's just me. But there are other people going through this too. And mindfulness over identification is kind of like what we talked about before. Identifying with a thought means becoming it, becoming this thought, where mindfulness is an awareness. It's noticing it. It's recognizing and being mindfully aware that, yes, this is hard. This is really hard, but I'm not alone. And I know I'm going to be okay. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to love myself and appreciate myself no matter what. And the self-compassion practice is really crucial. If you go through Kristen Neff's steps are mindfulness, then common humanity, then self. So remind yourself, this stinks, right? That's the way I describe it. This stinks, or this is hard. I'm not alone. And may I be kind to myself. May I know that I deserve to be okay, and I'm going to do my best. And however I handle this, I handle this. And I highly recommend her website. Selfcompassion.org is Kristen Neff's website. She has a book. She has, not to be a commercial for her, but I just think she is wonderful. And she has got practices that I assign as homework all the time with my clients in private practice on self-compassion. There's mindfulness, meditation practices, and ways that you can practice self-compassion. Any thoughts about this before we move on? Any comments, thoughts, questions?
A comment that the quote that you have on the slide is very powerful, very, very powerful.
Yeah. Perfectionism is, a lot of us don't admit that we're perfectionists, but I know I am. And it takes a lot of work for me to recognize that that's not necessarily helping me. So how do I be more kind, compassionate, and allow myself to be vulnerable, because I'm human like everybody else. And that's something that a lot of people I work with also really struggle with. So the more aware we are, the healthier we can be.
Great. And people are really connecting with this idea of negative self-talk and realizing that it's something that they are struggling with. And the comment, thank you for the boat in the storm analogy. That was great. Positive thinking is very helpful. So the negative self-talk is really resonating with people.
Good, I'm glad. And that kind of brings me to the focusing on the good. So this is where I want to be careful, because there's something called toxic positivity, right? When you're in the middle of a mess and you're just smile and grin through it, that's not always helpful either, right? We need to acknowledge how we feel and recognize that all emotions have a place and a purpose. And I really want to get that across. When I talk about positive psychology, I don't want to give the impression that we always need to be happy all the time. But I do want to point out that what you focus on becomes what you see. So there's a picture of a yellow car. If I'm looking at yellow cars and I go out on the road to start driving, guess what I'm going to see? Yellow cars everywhere, because my mind and my brain acts like a spam filter for all the information that's coming at me at all times. I can't possibly take it all in at once. So if I tell myself that there's a yellow car, I will start to notice the yellow cars. There were just as many yellow cars on the road a year ago, but I wasn't thinking about them, so I didn't see them. What we need to do is keep in mind that when we're watching so much news and we're watching so much negativity and we're taking in everybody's negative stories and situations and thinking about what could go wrong, that's what we're going to see. So we want to really identify the fact that there's good around us, lots of good around us. And that evolutionary bias is going to focus us more on the negative than the positive. So the picture there is someone running from a saber-toothed tiger. If you were a caveman, just like that little bearded man in the picture, and this is coming from I think this is Dan Siegel, one of my favorite psychologists. If you were running from a saber-toothed tiger, you don't have time to stop and think, is he friendly or is he not friendly? So that's when your thinking brain shuts off, right? And your fire alarm goes. But also, if you couldn't remember where your favorite blueberries were growing or your favorite carrots were, you wouldn't starve to death. You would find something else to eat. It wasn't a big deal if you couldn't remember what your favorite positive things were. But if you didn't remember what cave the bear lived in or what bush the tiger tended to hide behind, you'd get eaten and you wouldn't survive. So our brains are designed to focus more on the negative than the positive. And there is actually something called a Losado ratio, which has been studied in positive psychology to show that it's about a 3-to-1 ratio. There takes about 3 positive events in our thinking to equal a negative event, because the negative events are weighted so much heavier. So when you see something negative, your brain holds onto it for a survival purpose. And by doing that, the world becomes more negative and more cloudy. So positive psychology is, Martin Seligman is out of the University of Pennsylvania. He does a lot of great work. You can Google him. He's got websites. He's got a lot of great information. He talks a lot about positive psychology and the idea of focusing on the good. His studies on gratitude have shown that people who keep a gratitude journal become less depressed and even addicted to the exercise in his gratitude study after 2 weeks. So I'm a visual person. I like visuals. And I started studying positive psychology when my kids were younger, many years ago. And I would do a gratitude every night. What are you grateful for? And I started saying, I like to have a visual representation because that's just kind of how I operate. So I created my own version. I made this up, but I call it Fill Your Bag. And it's the idea that at the end of the day, we're all bombarded with negative information. Our brain holds on to the negative information more than the positive. So we collect it. So imagine you collect it in a bag and dump it out and use the letters from the word bag to fill it back up. B stands for what's the best and brightest part of my day. There's always something. A stands for what did I accomplish today? A part of positive psychology is accomplishment. And what am I grateful for, and why is that important to me? And just going through this, filling your bag with the best accomplishment and gratitude on a daily basis can help retrain our brain. Just like we noticed more yellow cars when we thought about them, it can help train our brain to notice more of what's good, because there's so much good around us. Right? Isn't it Mr. Rogers saying this is look for the helpers? In the midst of all of this, there are people putting together, feeding the hospital workers. There's food drives going on. There's restaurants trying to, donate things. There's so much happening that's good around us. And even within your own homes. I mean, I am I'm missing seeing my clients in person, right? I'm doing it all through telehealth, and my eyes are going crazy with this blue screen and telehealth. Um, I miss my kids playing sports. I miss just sitting at the baseball field and watching my 13-year-old pitch. I mean, I miss that so much. But there's also stuff that I've noticed that I'm grateful for. My kids are getting along. They're helping with chores. My daughter is now trying to make us vegetarian and cooking a vegetarian meal once a week. She started painting. She never had time to paint before, and she started painting. There are going to be some good in our lives throughout this. And the more we can focus on it, the more that we can start to feel better, because our brain is trying to put us into more of the negative on purpose for survival. So we need to fight that. I would say a to-do would just keep a gratitude journal, however you want to keep a gratitude. If you want to do what's in your bag, awesome. If you want to do just 3 things you're grateful for, that's awesome too. Maybe gratitude could be writing a letter to someone you care about. Is there someone in your life that you want to thank for just being in your life? Write them a letter, send it. There's lots and lots of ways to practice gratitude, and focusing on what's positive. Any thoughts or questions on the focusing on the positive?
Well, I know personally, I just wrote down bag really big on my paper. So I think the gratitude practice, a very simple of the best thing that happened, what did I accomplish, and what am I grateful for? It's an amazing tool to take away.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, I want to focus on mindfulness. There's a lot of talk about mindfulness and meditation, and I am a huge believer in meditation and meditation on a daily basis. The definition of mindfulness, though, is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment non-judgmentally. So that means focusing right now in the moment. Another one of my favorite, or people I look up to, is Bessel van der Kolk. He wrote the book, The Body Keeps Score, and he is a trauma expert. And one of the things that he talks about are preconditions for trauma. And during this COVID experience, we are all experiencing a lot of those preconditions for trauma, like loss of predictability, loss of connection, immobility, numbing out or spacing out. And this is where mindfulness can be really helpful. Practicing mindfulness and or meditating, because they're not exactly the same. Meditation is a form of mindfulness, but mindfulness can be practiced lots of ways. You can listen to music, you can do a puzzle, you can do an art project, anything where you're focusing and paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, is a form of mindfulness. So when we are going through this trauma-like experience right now, numbing out is really common. I'm hearing this, especially now that we're hitting 8 weeks of this. I'm hearing a lot of people, I'm just going through the motions. I'm in autopilot, I'm numbing out. That numbing out feeling, one way to help with that is to focus mindfully. Really get in tune with what am I experiencing? What am I feeling? Focusing in the moment. Even like adult coloring books are a great way to practice mindfulness. Or just when you're washing your hands, we're all washing our hands for 20 seconds and singing happy birthday. Maybe if we wash our hands while we focus on what's happening in my senses. What am I seeing? What am I smelling? What am I feeling? The cold water, the warm water as it rushes over my hand. Putting all my attention on washing my hands for that 20 seconds can be a mindfulness experience. So whether you want to start a meditation practice, or just start focusing more mindfully in the moment to help you kind of come into yourself can make a really big difference in this kind of tuning out and zoning out. So I have a couple of just examples of things that could be helpful. For breathing exercises, square breathing is really simple. And we talked before about the fire alarm in our brain, right? And our thinking, when our fire alarm goes off, our thinking brain shuts down. So for cognitive behavioral therapy, we need to re-engage the thinking brain to lower the fire alarm, right? Square breathing is also a way to do that. When you do square breathing, it affects the vagus nerve and can help us bring our limbic system, our fight, flight, and freeze system into a more calm place and can help us reduce our activation. So it's breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 8. And for those of us who have kids at home, this can be done really well by just having them blow out candles. And the longer the out breath, the more it activates the nervous system and kicks in the parasympathetic nervous system, which reduces activity in that fight, flight, freeze sympathetic nervous system. So just a few simple breaths. In fact, somebody just taught me the other day, if you're breathing out longer than you're breathing in, right? If you have to do public speaking and you're really nervous, make your first sentence a really long sentence. Because as you take your first breath, your first sentence, you're breathing out longer than you're breathing in, that can actually help calm you as you move forward. So I've been practicing that. So square breathing. And for little kids, blowing out candles. When my kids were little, I used to say, let's blow out candles together. So take a deep breath in. And then I want you to blow out, pretend there's a candle in front of you. And I like to engage all the senses. So I would say, what does your candle look like? What color is it? What, is it sparkly? Is it rainbow? Is it, tell me more. What does it smell like? And then picture that candle, take a deep breath in and then blow out the candle. And you practice this when you're not kind of freaking out or stressed out, so that when you do feel like you need it, you can go right there. You can say, oh, let's blow candles out. And I automatically have a picture in my head and I start the process. Another one that can be helpful is a grounding, right? To be present in the moment. Just pick a grounding exercise is about using all 5 senses and bringing you purposely in the moment. You're not worried about the future. You're not ruminating about the past. You're grounding in the moment. So 5 things you can see. So for me, my coffee cup, my computer, my paper, my clock, my stapler. 4 things I can touch. I can touch my sweater. I can touch my desk. I can touch my folder. I can touch a lotion. 3 things I can hear. I can hear myself talk. I can hear the buzzing of the lights. I can hear cars outside. 2 things I can smell. I can smell the candle that was burning earlier. I can smell, my detergent on my shirt. And then 1 thing I can taste. I'm still drinking my coffee, so I can taste my coffee. That brings me into the present moment in a mindful way. For those of us who want to start practicing meditation, there's some really great, simple apps. You can just go on YouTube and Google meditation, and there's plenty. The Calm app is one I really like, has a lot of free content. Headspace is another one that's offering a lot right now. Insight Timer is free. Love Insight Timer. You can go in the search bar of Insight Timer and put in the word self-compassion, and you'll get some of Kristen Neff's self-compassion meditations, guided meditations. You can put the word pain in if you have chronic pain, and then you can find pain meditations that kind of help manage chronic pain. And then 10% Happier is another one. All of these are the ones that I use regularly. There's a ton out there, but a lot of people get intimidated to start meditating because they think it's too hard. I can't turn my brain off, and you're not expected to turn your brain off. If I asked you right now to sit in front of your computer, look straight ahead at your computer, keep your eyes open, but don't see what's in front of you. You can't do it because your eyes want to see. Same thing with your brain. If I tell you to stop thinking, you're not going to stop thinking, right? So the idea is not to stop thinking. The idea is to focus mindfully on purpose, non-judgmentally, which is where the self-compassion comes in. Don't beat yourself up if your mind wanders. It's normal. Your mind's going to wander. Just practice bringing it back. So the question I would ask is, how can I incorporate as an action item 10 minutes of meditation or practice one task mindfully each day? What does that look like? And how can you incorporate that into your day? Any questions or thoughts or comments on mindfulness?
We have a lot of thoughts that the smell the roses, blow out the candle, very good. A lot of people are saying they're going to either use or already using blowing out the candle with children or elementary school students. People are still loving the bag idea, and being useful and helping others too is a way of meditation. And then one comment that you're providing excellent explanations of how to work these into your everyday life.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, and just one note with little kids and the blowing out candles. If you have a kid who's having a tantrum or having a really rough time and you tell them to blow out candles, they're probably not going to be able to. What I've noticed, and my baby is actually 13, and he'd be mortified that I'm throwing him under the bus, but when he was younger, we would talk about blowing out candles when he wasn't having a hard time. And then when he was having a hard time, and I would ask him to blow out the candles, he'd do what you'd expect. No, no. So that's when I would say, okay, baby, mama's going to blow out candles. And I would sometimes just hold his hand and sit with him and let him do what he's doing and start counting 10 candles and start by blowing out candles. So smell the rose, blow out the candle. By the time I got to like 3 or 4, he would realize I'm not giving the tantrum any attention. I'm not really kind of focusing there. He would notice and he would join in. Sometimes we'd have to do more than 10, but eventually he would calm, right? His fire alarm would calm down enough. This is when he was like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. It would calm down enough that I would say, okay, baby, what happened? Right? And then, well, I was mad when my sister, whatever it was, and we would talk through it. But it's something that we would practice when he wasn't in that state, right? When his nervous system wasn't kind of reacting, so that he knew how to do it. And it wouldn't happen that quickly. I would sometimes have to start and model it. So just a little heads up that it takes a little practice. The next area is connecting with others. Other people give us a sense of security and safety. When we feel seen and feel heard, we feel safe. We're social beings. Social distancing does not mean social isolation. A lot of us are really stuck. We miss family members. We want to hug relatives. We want to see people that we haven't seen. And I'm feeling it too. We're all feeling it. Especially today's a Friday going into the weekend. And, you know, there's even a little part of me that sometimes is like, oh, it's bad weather. Okay, well, at least then now there isn't the pressure of kind of seeing people sometimes, right? Because it's so hard. You want to see people. But you don't have to be isolated. You don't have to be completely isolated. You can distance without being isolated. You can social distance and talk to someone outside from across the street. You can use video chatting. You can use Zoom. You can use Facebook. I think even Netflix has a way you can watch a movie with somebody in another house at the exact same time and talk to each other. I think my teenager and her boyfriend do that quite a lot through Netflix. It's about still connecting to other people. And when we're feeling sad or depressed or anxious, which a lot of us are, the first thing we do is shut down. And that shutting down disconnects us from other people, and we need other people. So not only do we want to connect with people outside of our house through other ways, safe ways, but we also want to connect with the people in our home. Who's in the home with us, and can we have meaningful connection with them? A lot of us are arguing and getting on each other's nerves. So how do we create more of a connection with the people in our homes and talk through what's happening, being vulnerable? And that's really hard to do. When we talked before about our nervous system, how our nervous system acts, there's fight, flight, and freeze. We used to believe it was just fight and flight, but we now know that our system, it's called the polyvagal theory. There's 3 different levels. There is feeling safe and secure, right? That's when our ventral vagal nerve, when we can stimulate that part, and that comes from connecting with other people, mindfully connecting with ourselves, feeling safe and feeling secure. When a newborn baby is born and the baby looks at the mom for the very first time, it activates that ventral vagal system of security and connection and safety. all of us right now are going through this state of safety, but we're also feeling fight or flight, right? Fight or flight is when we feel activated, when we sense danger. And then there's the third, they call it's the dorsal vagal response, where we shut down. For the person who said before, like having trouble getting out of bed, that's a dorsal vagal response. Your limbic system, your nervous system is shutting down as a response to trauma and or a sense of not being safe. So one way to help feel safe is to connect with yourself through mindfulness, connect with other people, talk to other people, and recognize that we don't have to isolate from others in order to stay safe and stay distant. And really, how important is that? And just noticing when your body goes into that shutdown mode or fight and flight mode, instead of being angry with your body, recognizing this is a normal adaptive response to sensing danger. How can I acknowledge that and be kinder to myself through this process and know that everybody's doing it different? Yeah. So as far as a to-do, I would say stay connected, use technology, make a point to speak to someone outside of your home each day, however you do it. Foster relationships inside your home, and then help your community in ways that are appropriate, right? There are a lot of people doing really great things right now. I know that New Jersey has Flag that was started by one of my neighbors, which is like unbelievably amazing, which is feeding the hospital workers. There are people collecting food drives. There's people making masks, helping your community in ways that are appropriate, but ways that you feel able, right? If your nervous system and your fight, flight, and freeze, if you're the kind of person who's in fight mode when they feel a sense of danger, you're going to be making masks, baking things, jumping on to help. And that's great. But if you're someone who tends to be the flight response, you're going to say, nope, not doing any of that. I don't know. That's not, and that's okay too. Or freeze, somebody who says, no, I'm going to watch my Netflix. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to be where I am. That's fine too. But just recognizing that connection with other people is important, and to not lose sight of that whenever you can. Any thoughts or questions in the chat?
So we have someone who has a senior in high school. They're not having graduation or prom. What exercises do you recommend to help them deal with it?
That is such a hard thing right now, because that senior year, it's a milestone, right? How many of us who are like old like me and late 40s who remember senior in high school, right? It's hard. So I would say allowing your senior to talk about how they feel and really explaining to them, like in the self-compassion, this is terrible. You don't want to say, oh, it's okay. You're not going to really, it doesn't really matter. You don't want that toxic positive. You want to acknowledge their feelings and validate. This is really hard. This is not something we've ever been through before, but you're not alone. There are so many kids graduating high school right now who are not able to graduate the way they wanted to or expect to. But we can do hard things. We can do this. And as awful as this is, we have a choice on now what we do. And keeping them engaged and focusing on what's going well. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. There's no way to make this okay. But what your kids, even your seniors in high school, what they're going to remember when this is all over, because life will go back to normal. Maybe normal won't be for a while, but when life does go back to normal, they're not going to necessarily remember. They're going to remember not having a graduation, but what they're going to remember is how they felt. Did they feel safe? Did they feel validated? Did they feel listened to? Did they feel supported? And that's going to be really important to help them feel supported. And right now there's so much dichotomy going on as far as people fighting with each other about what the right way to go about things are. And I would say try not to focus on that. Try not to blame and try not to get caught up in that, but just focus on your senior's individual experience and recognizing that you realize that this is really hard and that they have the whole future ahead of them that's going to be more important than this one moment, if that makes sense.
And another question is about the media and seeing a lot of bad news. How do you handle that? How does that impact our health, and how can we handle that?
It totally impacts our health in a negative way if we're watching too much and we're seeing all the negative news. It freaks us out. And so we have to limit, like, you need the news to get information, right? But I also know that, a lot of people worry that the news is biased. Yes, probably on both sides, depending on which news you're watching. It's one extreme or the other. It's really hard to find one that's pretty neutral, but do your best to find one that's as neutral as possible and limit how much you're taking in, limit how much information you're getting and how you're doing it, because it does weigh on you, right, over time. And focus on what, and it goes back to the first slide, was what's in your control, right? You can't control what other people are doing. You can't control what's out there. You can control what's happening in your home, in your house, and your life. And that's easier said than done. Trust me, I've had quite a few Facebook verbal arguments or typed arguments in the past few weeks that I probably shouldn't have had, when I take a step back and say, wait, I'm not following my own advice. This is not healthy, right? So we need to be able to connect with others, but also do what's healthy for us. Does that answer the question?
I think it does. Thank you. And then the last one, there's just a lot of people recognizing if they have a fight or flight, and also noticing that even within their own home, there's people who have either fight or flight or freeze within one home.
Yeah, absolutely. And if everybody's handling things differently, having compassion for the people in your home and recognize it's not personal. I mean, that's the key. When we went back to that slide where we had the picture of the event, the thought, and the feeling, part of it is a lot of our thoughts are we take things personally that are not personal. We all do. It's kind of human nature, right? Because the world revolves around us. We're the center of our universe. So of course that we're going to take it personally. The key is it's probably not personal. Most things are not personal. So if we could kind of take a step back and notice what's happening with our family members, is their way of coping, is their fight and flight system kicking in the way that's comfortable for them and familiar for them. And yes, you don't want to be treated poorly, but what you want to do is just kind of recognize that it's not personal, and we're all going through this together, and we're all in the same boat. So boundaries. A lot of us who are working from home, I am very blessed, and I recognize the privilege of being blessed. I'm doing this right now from my office. My office is private. There's nobody here. I'm completely isolated. I don't have a waiting room, which everyone used to always say, wow, how do you have a therapy office without a waiting room? But now it's been a blessing because I have a door that goes right out of the back of the building. So nobody can come here but me. So right? So I have that boundary of work, but at home, a lot of us don't have that. If you have space where you could work, that you're just working, awesome. For your kids, a space that they're doing school. If they're doing school in the family room or the basement or their bedroom and it's changing every day, it's hard to have a boundary. Everybody's in their home. It's 8 weeks now, and everything's so enmeshed that it can be really hard to have a boundary. And a lot of people are telling me that their job, they're overcompensating. They're working so much, they don't know how to turn it off. There's no downtime. They're spinning. So it's going to be really important to have a dedicated space for work. Have a dedicated space for your kids to be doing schoolwork, and have a ritual. When you're not doing schoolwork, leave your school computer where it is. Don't take it and do it other places in the house. Set that boundary, like, okay, this is work hours, this is non-work hours. You know, my husband works from home a lot because his job is usually on an airplane or out of Chicago, and we live in New Jersey. So he's home 50% of the time. And now with COVID, he's home 100% of the time. And it's really hard sometimes for him to turn off work because his office is right down the hall in our home. But we've been making it a point to really saying, okay, this is his work hours. And, you know, no matter what happens at this time, I shut it down, I turn it off, I don't check email, I don't answer work calls. And he's been actually going in the backyard and playing wiffle ball with my little one every day. And that's been their time together. You want to guard that downtime, because it's really easy to overcompensate and think you have to work all the time. And for kids at school, there's this feeling like, I have to do it right. I have to do this project exactly right. And in the end, what their grades are for 3 or 4 months is really not so important. What's important is how they felt. Do they feel supported? Do they feel loved? Do they feel safe? Right? And how can you help them feel that sense of safety? And so harping on the schoolwork is probably counterproductive right now. So you want to guard your downtime, watch out for overcompensating, and leave work at work. Even if that means leaving work at the corner of your dining room table, leave it there. Don't bring it with you to the rest of the house. I would say set a space just for work, set your hours, make a plan how you will disconnect. I have one person that basically gets in the car every morning, drives to maybe goes through like a drive-through of a Starbucks, or maybe just drives and then comes home and then goes to their workspace. Because for them, that it's like that commute to work, to and from work, was a way to disconnect, and they don't have a commute anymore. So they get out and they drive around and they come home. What do you need to do to really know that you're disconnected? Any thoughts on that before I kind of go on to the last section? I know I'm mindful of the time.
Yeah, we can go on to the next section.
Okay. So, and this is kind of just an over-encompassing self-care. Nutrition is super important. The more you can take care of your health, and we know one of the things we do know with COVID is eating healthy helps your immune system, right? Right. So eating, exercising, all the gyms are closed, but exercising from home is really, really important if to keep exercise in your routine. It's not simple, it's not easy, but having a routine is going to be helpful. And when we talked before about that saber-toothed tiger in the bushes ready to come get us, our brains are on alert for that tiger. And when we're looking for that tiger, everything seems dark and negative. If we're not eating right, if we're not exercising, if we're not sleeping, if we're not in a routine, our brain gets the signal that, uh-oh, something's wrong in our environment. I need to be extra diligent looking for that saber-toothed tiger. So everything seems more negative. Like those Snickers commercials, right, where it's hangry. So the more we take care of our body, the better we feel. So, and routine, right? One of the biggest things is this lack of predictability is a precondition for trauma. There is a lack of predictability. So create a routine. But create a routine, don't create it for your family. For those parents out there, I would love for my kids to get up and do their schoolwork right away. That's not happening. I come to my office down the street from my house, actually, come to the office, and my kids are still asleep, but they have a routine. The routine starts later, but it's still a routine, right? They do their schoolwork, they exercise. My little one goes out and it does baseball practice on the tee or with the backstop and kind of does his training. My daughter does her lacrosse training. They do their stuff in their own routine and stay consistent during the week. And that's important because of this lack of predictability is really hard. So any routine you can come up with is helpful. Sleep is helpful. If we don't sleep, we're hurting our bodies, and that increases our anxiety and increases our stress. And of course, now hand washing, social distancing, limiting our news sources are all going to be really crucial. So just have a predictable schedule and routine. Stay active. Immobility is another precondition for trauma. So if you're not getting up and moving, right, that's how you can kind of fight that immobility reaction. Limit the news and know who to reach out to for help. Know who to call if you start to feel sick. Get a telehealth call with your primary care doctor. Take down the number for the suicide hotline. There's also New Jersey has a NAMI has so many different resources that you can go to, and text messages to call if you're struggling. Have a therapist. If you don't have a therapist, go on Psychology Today or Google. There's actually a bunch of therapists who are doing pro bono work through Rutgers and there's another website. It's like coronavirus therapy. If you Google it, or anyone can even email me and I can get resources to you or Meredith. We have a bunch of resources, but know where you can go if you need help and if you need support. So with it being 5 minutes to the end, if anybody wants to, we can do some Q&A if you want. And all my information is here. And a lot of the stuff I talk about, I reference a lot of books, a lot of videos, a lot of things I have on my website on maximize-wellness.com, a page for resources where I list a ton of books, a lot of videos, a lot of links to different sources, meditation apps, things that I find helpful. I keep updated. So you can go there if you want to get any resources or information. But any questions, Meredith, before we finish up?
Great, thank you so much. So one question is, can you talk about virtual burnout?
Yeah, I think that virtual burnout is real. So we're so trying to connect because we're thinking, oh my God, I can't see people in person. I've got to do everything face to face. But now we're getting kind of Zoom fatigue. So it might be that if you want to connect with someone, pick up the phone, put earphones in and go for a walk outside, because there is this virtual burnout, and you can kind of go for a walk in nature and talk to someone on the phone the old fashioned way, right? If you're my age, you remember being hours on the phone connected with the cord in the kitchen, right? You can talk on the phone and still get that sense of safety and security with another person through connection, or take a walk with someone in your house. But we're trying to overcompensate for not seeing people, that we're doing so much video stuff that maybe we need to take a break from the videos. So that's definitely something real to manage. So whenever you can get outside and get fresh air, it's going to be really important to stay away from the screens whenever you can.
Great. Can you elaborate on how to do a task mindfully?
So we'll use brushing your teeth as an example. So a lot of times when you're brushing your teeth, like if you're like most of us, you're thinking about, all right, what do I have to do today? What do I want for breakfast? What time do I have to be, like, whatever it is, we're brushing our teeth, we're thinking of other things. But if you were to brush your teeth mindfully, as you're brushing your teeth, be curious in the moment. What does the toothpaste taste like? Does it remind you of anything? What is it? What can I smell right now? What's the temperature of the water as I brush my teeth? When I go to rinse it, can I feel the water splash on my hand? What pressure am I putting on each tooth? So it's about using as many of the senses as you can and focusing on being curious as if you've never brushed your teeth before in your life. It's like you're doing something for the first time. You've never done it. You don't know what to expect. And you're curious about every moment as you're doing it. That's the best way to describe it. It's kind of, they call it from a beginner's mind in mindfulness. So treat an experience like you're a beginner and you've never done it and you're curious about every aspect of it. And you can even go on like YouTube and look up like walking meditation or a shower meditation or mindful shower, and they can walk you through some steps to do things a little bit more mindfully. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that was great. So I think we'll end with this comment because there's a lot of comments that mimic this comment. I have taken many webinars, but you present in a very real way, giving examples that are so helpful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Great webinar. Thank you so much. So this is being recorded, and both the slides and the recording will be available on NAMINJ.org as well as our YouTube channel. So Cara, thank you so much for just being a wonderful presenter and really giving a lot of amazing examples today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just want to take this time to talk a little bit about NAMI New Jersey. NAMI New Jersey has a lot of resources online, so I encourage you to go to NAMINJ.org. And let me share my screen. What you can see when you go to NAMINJ.org, you will see our home screen. This is our COVID page. If you go to our COVID page, you will be able to see all of our activities that we currently are doing, as well as our monthly calendar. To get involved, you can become a member, but all of our resources are free. We have online support groups, our monthly calendar of all our upcoming webinars, as well as support groups. And when you go to the COVID-19 page and scroll down, you will see the link to all of our services, as well as the webinar series. This is where you can find this webinar, as well as on our YouTube page, as well as the handouts. So Cara, thank you so much for an amazing, amazing webinar, and thank you all for participating today. We hope you stay well and come back to NAMI New Jersey for any support in future webinars. Take care. Thank you, Cara.